Let's actually find out what we should be watching in NBA free agency because the whole darn thing hit the big pause button, and that means we reach out to our girl, Ramona Shelburne, ESPN, with the latest that's going on. Hey, Momo, how we doing?
What's up, Mark?
What's good? Everything all right out there?
Yeah, it's good. You know, kind of like, it was like 105 a week, so we kind of, our June gloom is over. How about you guys up there?
Nope, still gloomy.
No, you were in the islands, and it was 108 while you were gone.
But now it's back.
Yes.
Now we're back to 63 degrees. But all good. But I tell you what, waiting on summer is like waiting on free agency. Dame Lillard has sort of stopped the whole thing, right? Like, how's this all going to end and when?
I think I think summer league is when everybody is in the same place at the same time. People, they meet up for coffee at the Wynn, they're in the gym, and UNLV. People start talking. So I think we'll see a flurry of talking and activity and conversations, and whether that leads to anything, I don't know. But I mean, here's how this shakes out for Dame. He's given them one team, and that one team is not incentivized to bid against itself. Like, why is Miami going to twist itself into a pretzel when there's it just seems like there's no other teams that Dame would think about going to, and therefore Portland doesn't have a lot of leverage. So I think it's just I do think he eventually ends up in Miami, but they're going to have to put more in there. They're going to have to get a little creative and figure out how to get more to Portland. And it's not that easy, because they have to get other teams to give Portland stuff. Like, you can't just do Tyler Hero or Duncan Robinson or Kyle Lowry, like those kind of names. Like, you have to help Portland get off other contracts, probably Yusuf Nurkic, right? You'd have to get some draft picks. You have to get, and they can't just be bad draft picks. They have to be good draft picks and a young player. And so it's just hard for Miami to do it. But if there's one front office I think can figure it out, it's Miami. Like, they have the best GM in the league, and Andy Ellsberg, and then Pat Riley's like, if there's a will, there's a way. So I think Summer League is probably the catalyst for a lot of this.
Yeah, I like the imagery of Pat Riley in one of his flowered shirts, just hanging out and having a mocha at the Wynn, just trying to make this happen. What do you think of the notion that the Blazers, quote, owe it to Dame to send him to Miami because he's been so loyal there?
I mean, it's an interesting notion, right? I mean, I was on the show the other day with Malika Andrews, and she was like, "Wait, sorry, are you saying he would stay home if he doesn't get traded to where he wants to go?" And I go, "I don't think we're there yet, but that's certainly things could get very uncomfortable if it's to a team he really doesn't want to go to, and then you have to decide you want to call his bluff. Like, it's not just about the Blazers and do they owe him that? It's whether or not Dame would sit out. Like, would he? I don't know. He's the only one who could ever answer that. Okay. I think in the strongest words possible, that's being conveyed to teams who call and ask about his interest level or how he would feel about this or that. Remember, this is still just, I don't know. I have no idea what day it is, right? Like, it all just blended together. I think free agency started on Friday, and then his request was on Saturday. So it's like, what day is it today? Wednesday? It's not that long of a time period that we're talking about here. But he has 4 years and $56 million a year coming to him. So I don't know. I think he loves basketball. I think he loves, to play. I can't see him sitting out, but from a PR perspective, like, do you really want to give up a lot of assets to trade for a guy who doesn't want to play for your team? Like, well, would he say bad things about your team? Would he make it uncomfortable? Would it be yucky? Like, it's a hard thing to do. But just name some teams. Like, if you're the Pistons, why not? Right? If you're Oklahoma City and I don't know if he fits their timeline or not or whatever, but let's say you're Orlando, or just name a team with some good young players and draft picks. Would you take a swing? Would you do that? I mean, we ran into this with Kawhi Leonard a couple of years ago. Toronto took a swing, and they traded for him, and he went there and won a championship. Now, little different scenario in that Kawhi had 1 year left on his deal and sort of had to play because he was going to be a free agent. Dame has 4 years. He wouldn't get, if you pull a Ben Simmons, you don't get paid. But, you could always have some back problems. You could have some. He's already had rib injury or what was that? What was the abdominal muscle injury he had? I mean, I'm sure that could buy them some time, but it's a really interesting thing to watch shake out over the next couple of weeks and see if it happens quickly or not. Because the first deadline that comes up, guys, is the end of the moratorium, where there's 4-team construction with Detroit, Brooklyn, the Miami Heat, and Portland. That goes away once the Joe Harris trade officially goes through, when the moratorium ends tomorrow.
Ramona Shelburne, ESPN, with us here, Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. So here's the other thing, as the Warriors wait on maybe some minimum contract guys after this whole thing shakes out. Ramona, I know you've covered Chris Paul for a long time, not just in NBA circles, but all the way back to local days when he was with Lob City. And so I wonder what you know about Chris, the leader, because we've been talking today about Draymond Green's comments to Paul George about leadership and learning from Chris Paul. I'm both intrigued by the fact that the Warriors now have somebody who could stand up to Draymond, but I'm also terrified that they've got two Draymonds. Like, what do you think about these two guys in the locker room together?
I am very intrigued by this as well. And Mark, you and I are in the content business, so we cannot complain. Okay, because this is content for days right here. I think it's. I'm not sure which way it's going to go. I really am not. Like, I think Chris Paul has always been the leader in the locker room. He's grown up. People respect him and how he carries himself and who he is. But he's also joining a group of guys who have won 4 championships together, and he has not. And they beat his teams on the way to get there. And so there's a learning opportunity here for Chris Paul. Like, clearly the Warriors have the secret sauce that he's been looking for his whole life, and so career. So I think there's a sort of, I wonder how he approaches it. I mean, we've seen him play the veteran mentor in Oklahoma City and do it in a very professional way where everybody was really happy with that arrangement. We've seen him go to Houston and do that. And we've seen him, we've seen him play in Phoenix and be the veteran, but never seen him join a team that has beat his team, that has players that are his age and his cohort. And, like, does he have it in him to just, like, kind of, I don't want to say kiss the ring, because that's not what it is. It's can I learn from you? Can I learn from you? And he has to see this as probably the best opportunity he has left to win a ring. He's 38, and so I have seen him in business do that. I mean, he's the one, Bob Iger, who has told the story in his book and publicly about how Chris approached him and called him and said, "I want you to mentor me." And Bob Iger's like, "Yes, thank you, Chris. That's nice. There's a lot of people in the business world who would like me to mentor them as well." Bob Iger's had a pretty good career, and Chris just kind of kept at it, and he impressed Bob Iger and got him to mentor him. So I don't know. He's shown that ability in other realms, so I think it could work. I'll say this: when I talk to Warriors folks, they seem really excited about it because he's a grown-up. He's a hell of a player. One of the things that you can't even walk in the door if you don't have basketball IQ. Like, if you're about, to play for the Warriors, and that's Chris Paul's got basketball IQ, right? I mean, he's obviously one of the greatest point guards of all time, and thinks the game at a really high level, very tough-minded. I think he can, he's not seen as a great defender, but he is. Like, I used to love watching him guard Kobe when the Lakers and Clippers would go at it, right? Like, Chris would just get low, then he would guard Kobe. Hey, he's sort of not afraid of anybody. So I'm interested to see how this shakes out, because there's a part of me that's like, Chris, you say he can call out Draymond or stand up to Draymond. I don't know. I don't know that you try that with Dre. Like, Dre's won 4 titles. Maybe you might say something, but I don't know if that's his place.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd recommend that, Ramona, day one, to going to stand right up to Draymond. 4 titles in his team. Ramona Shelburne here, 95.7 The Game. What about the on-court style of Chris Paul? A little bit of a slower player, especially now at 38, versus the up-tempo, fastest pace in the association Warriors. Do you think that the styles can really gel?
That is a bigger question for me, because Chris Paul's a great pick-and-roll player, so who's he gonna play pick-and-roll with? Like, it's not really a natural fit there. Like, where's the Clint Capella? Where's the DeAndre Ayton? Who's who's the classic 5-man who's going to play a pick and roll with him? Looney is more pick and pop. Draymond, I guess he can play pick and roll with Draymond, but like kind of lose some of what makes the Draymond Steph thing so special, which is how great a shooter he is and the dribbling. I guess he can play pick and roll with Draymond, but Draymond's not really rolling; he's popping, right? So I don't know. It's an interesting fit. Chris is a really good shooter, though. Like people don't give him enough credit as a 3-point shooter. He's really good there. He's gonna make the ball move. The tiki taka, right? Like that's the
nice.
way they want to play. Are you guys Ted Lasso fans?
Absolutely. And any soccer reference it goes in the Dibley column here on this show, Ramona, so thank you.
All right, so that Ted Lasso played total football. That's the Barcelona tiki-taka. Okay, that's the way Steve Kerr wants to play basketball. Right? Basketball finds, what did Jamie Tart say? Don't play to me, play through me, right? Like that's how the Warriors like playing, right? And so it's I can't believe we just mixed metaphors with like in a real way with the Warriors and Jamie Tart, but that's what we're doing here.
And it counts.
Like Chris Paul can do that. Like Chris Paul can play like that. I mean, he's a really smart basketball. The basketball finds energy when it moves. Like he'll fit in that way, but that classic pick and roll stuff, I don't know. They'll have to work at that. It's a better way to put it. They'll have to work at that.
Well, I do have a name for you on that. But first, you're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, always live on Twitch, YouTube, and the free Odyssey app. What if I gave you the name Jonathan Kuminga, Ramona?
Yes.
And right? Because Draymond even stated this move is big for Jonathan. And obviously, if someone's going to step forward and replace whatever Poole gave them, like that's the guy that needs to take a step. So what do you think about that? And what are you hearing that the Warriors feel is the future for Jonathan?
I mean, it's a big year for him. I'll tell you this. The one young kid I really think is going to play next year is Moody, okay? He earned some postseason minutes. I think the coaching staff's really starting to trust him. But, if you would ask me that, earlier in the season, we might have said Kuminga, right? He's shown flashes of that. So this is a big year for JK because I think there's of all the young kids around on the team that have value around the league, that's the one that you hear his name get brought up a lot. Like if you have a team that's in a rebuilding situation that has time to do some player development, that's going to, toss out a young player and give him some run and give him some time to work through things. Like Kuminga is a fascinating prospect. He has a lot of value around the league. And so this feels like the Warriors just decided to go all in with this current core, which is what we were talking about last year. Like, do they just stick with the big three and ride till the end? That's kind of what it seems like they're doing. And it's now the question is who rides with them, right? Does Moody ride with them? I think Looney's kind of part of that now, isn't he? Like he's not quite the big three, but he's at least Sean Livingston, right? At least in that level.
Right.
Can Moody join that? Can JK join that? That's a big question. So it's interesting. The Warriors had a couple of decisions to make this year, and the timing plays a part in this. Chris Paul's $30 million is, they're going to play him this year, but he's unguaranteed for next year, so it gives them optionality. It's a word we talk about a lot in baseball. Like all that. That's a word that all the baseball GMs like to use. Have that optionality, right? They have that now with Klay Thompson's contract. We'll see if they do an extension and what it looks like. They have that with Chris Paul. They had another choice. I mean, they could have waited for Dame. Dame is from the Bay Area. I know he was interested. If he got to the point where he was going to ask for a trade and like the list was given, the Warriors initially would have been on that list. But I think now it's not possible, right? Because of the moves they've made. They sort of locked in. They could have waited. I think they did smart thing by trading for Chris Paul when they did because they, preserved the optionality. Plus, they get a really good player. But Kuminga's a real question mark for me because I think he's incredibly talented. But if you're doubling down on older players, how much run does he really get?
Yeah, you're running low on bodies though in terms of what you've done so far. So he may have to be out there and play. And one body they won't have, Jordan Poole. What do you make of the haul that they were getting? I mean, they got 38-year-old Hall of Famer Chris Paul, but they had to send other players in order to just get a 38-year-old on a contract with that optionality. What's the opinion of Jordan Poole around the league?
I think people see that as a good trade for both sides because this year what you've seen is everybody is trying to get under that second apron. So any long-term money, unless it's just people who are really good about that long-term money, people are trying to get off of, or you're having to incentivize people to take players who are under contract for a few years. Like that's why the return for Bradley Beal was so low, is because of the no trade clause, but also because of how long the time commitment and the money commitment was to him. And so I think with Jordan Poole, like he had a bad year last year. Like it just wasn't a good year, right? And I think his defensive limitations showed up. He didn't shoot the ball nearly as well as he did the year before. He's seen as a guy who can go out and get you 30. But in terms of being just like the all-around game, the fitting in, like I don't think that's fair to Jordan. He had one bad year, but it was also after he got punched in the face by Draymond Green and then had to sit next to him all year in the locker room. I mean, I don't know how any of that's talk about a difficult workplace environment. I think he has a lot. I mean, he has a lot to prove still in this league, but he should really get a little leeway to do so, just because of what happened to him last year.
Ramona, can we go back to your statement about Dame Lillard and if the Warriors had waited? So, he would have had interest in coming home, and how would the Warriors have constructed that, both with players and finances, to even make something like that work?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, right? Okay, if you put Steph and Dame in a backcourt that's like a pretty small backcourt, does Klay come off the bench? Is he part of the trade? Like it's a interesting thought experiment that we don't need to. It's not going to be reality now because Jordan Poole would have had to be in that trade probably. Probably how that would have But the Warriors do have young players. People like Jordan Poole is a good young player. Jonathan Kuminga is a good young player. Like if they wanted to go that way, but I really think financially that is the biggest prohibitive thing there. I mean, like Dame is from Oakland. There has always been an interest level in playing back in the Bay, back at home, right? There's always been that idea of like, what if? But I don't think they're not going to get that trade done with the Chris Paul contract, right? And I'll tell you this, I don't think they're trading Klay Thompson at all. Like I think he is seen as it's Steph and Klay. Like there's not a desire to move off Klay. Like there's a real commitment to Klay Thompson and that duo in the backcourt. I don't know where the resilience came from. Did Steph just basically put his foot down? I don't know where that came from, but I don't think they're trading Klay at all. So the idea of Dame is an interesting one. It can't happen now because of all the moves that they have made, and I don't know how they would have got there financially. But yeah, at least on Dame's side, there is interest.
That is interesting. Ramona Shelburne, ESPN. Hey, real quick, any names you're hearing that could end up on the Warriors? We've heard Dario Saric. Any other buzz?
This would just be me tossing out some names that I think are interesting. Okay, like Kelly Oubre hasn't been signed. Now that didn't go that well the first time, but he's really good. He scored 20 points. Young, he's unrestricted. Christian Woods is still out there. Like there's some interesting guys that are still out there. Bible looks like he's going to Dallas, but that hasn't been done yet. So I think there's some interesting unrestricted free agents that are still out there, Warriors wise. That it's just going to take a while for those guys to decide. Okay, we really don't have anything else. We have to do the minimum, right? Is Golden State good? Am I going to play? I think they'll need to replace DiVincenzo a little bit in his youth, but I think that does not feel like a Moody situation there.
Yeah,
does not feel like those minutes come from that. Go to Moody.
This fan base would love for Moses Moody to have a bigger role. I think coming out of the finals last year, people thought that was going to happen right away.
Yeah, Saric makes sense for them just because he's a big with some IQ and some he makes. I thought Robin Lopez would have been interesting for them, but he's going back to Milwaukee. So you know, we're now at the 14th, 15th man stage, right?
Yeah.
You just kind of wait for those things to shake out and people decide they're going to sign on with a contender and take the minimum.
You gave me a little PTSD with the Oubre call out.
I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's
20 points a game for Charlie last year.
Yeah, but you just mentioned.
I think he goes to the Knicks, though. I think that's the Knicks.
I hope he goes to the Knicks. Not a very high IQ player in my memories of Kelly Oubre out here. Yeah, boy.
Ramona, great stuff. Great stuff. Thank you so much.
Thanks, boys.